Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of Freedomlink Radio. I'm your host, Joe Joseph. Alongside me is AC Griffith and John King. Guys, how you doing this evening?
Doing fine,
real
Joe.
good.
Oh, wow, you guys decided to talk exactly at the same time. All right. Starting off great. That's what I'm talking about. Folks, our guest tonight is the one, the only, Mr. Bob Chapman, author of The International Forecaster and economist extraordinaire. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Well, thank you very much. We get a crowd tonight.
Yes, sir. We certainly do. And boy, oh boy, do we have something to talk about, don't we? The Egyptian crisis is really getting out of hand, and I'm very interested to get your take on that. So I'm going to pose the question to you. What do you think about the Egyptian crisis? Do you think that the U.S. is manufacturing this crisis in order to advance an agenda? What do you think's going on over there?
From the very beginning, when I saw Tunisia, I saw all the earmarks of another setup and government overthrow. And that was followed in Egypt. What they're trying to do is distract people from what's going on financially in the United States and in Europe. The municipal problems, the funding of the Treasury by the Fed, and over in Europe, the Chinese and Japanese had to come in and buy bonds. I think that the U.S. had a lot to do with that. And, of course, as well, the aims of exporters, Japan and China, looking to have deeper penetration. And, of course, the bonds were yielding around 7%, so in today's world, that's a pretty good return. But as far as Egypt is concerned, I think they made a terrible mistake. And Mr. Mubarak is looking like he really wants to stay for a while, and maybe everybody will forget everything. And that's not going to work. The opposition, the Muslim Brotherhood, has been financed for years by the CIA, just like Osama bin Laden. And so I think you're going to see political turmoil there. But I don't think it'll go much beyond that. I'm surprised that Mr. Mubarak is making the stupid mistake of having his goons beat people up, including Anderson Cooper, among others. And I think that was rather lame. But
it was, yeah.
You know, the CIA and MI6 really, they make some terrible mistakes, and this is one of them.
Let me throw
I don't see it spreading, except on a demonstration basis. We've already seen in Jordan that the king, that's what they call him,
right?
He is going to change his cabinet and make superficial changes. He wouldn't dare walk across the street without calling Langley. And in Yemen, some demonstrations, not much. Saudi Arabia will be fully protected by both Israel and the United States. So I don't see it going much further than that.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that it could also be the fact that we're bankrupt? I mean, our debt is going to hit what they're publicizing our debt to be $14.3 trillion. Just so happens to be the GDP of this nation. So our debt is going to equal 100% of our GDP. And that, by definition, means we're bankrupt. So do you think that destabilizing the region out there would give them more of a reason to wage wars or try to advance agendas in that way?
Well, you know, you never know what these people are going to do.
Right.
And we don't have access, really, to inside information. We really have to be reactors. We have to figure out what they're going to do or what they're going to do after they begun what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's such a difficult call, and it gets more and more difficult because the internet and talk radio like this program is essentially stalking the people who are behind government in all governments, but particularly the United States. We're trying to see what they're going to do next, and they're terrified. They're arrogant. They think they're going to be able to pull off what they're looking for, which is world government. But I don't think that's going to happen. And I think they're really concerned because people like myself get on radio internationally and tell them, look, you're going to lose. And this time we ain't taking any prisoners.
Griff, that sounds a lot like you speak sometimes. Minus the self and family tact. But, you and Bob are kind of on the same page about things.
Joe, Bob is my role model.
God help you.
No, I have a lot of respect for you, Bob. I really do, and I know you're putting your life in danger just talking like this. I'm well aware of that. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.
Now, I heard Donald Trump. Donald Trump did an interview the other day. I think it was yesterday. And one of the things that he said that I found kind of interesting is that he kind of took it as it could be a bad thing or a good thing what's going on in Egypt for the United States. He says it's bad in the sense that, you have destabilization and you're going to have a criminal element kind of take over in the event that Mubarak leaves or whatever, which is, one criminal element replaces another. But he said the upside to that is you could possibly see the breaking up of OPEC, which in and of itself being, a cartel, is kind of illegal by U.S. standards, by the law. Not that anybody follows the law in most of the big business anymore, but he did see a glimmer of hope that maybe OPEC would get busted up by all this, and we would see a return to normal oil prices. I'm interested to get your take on that. What do you think about what he said about that?
He's a politician. He wants to run for the presidency. He'll tell you anything you want.
Yeah. It's
you can trust him as far as you can kick him.
That's what I figured. I figured that as much too because he did say in that he was considering a run for the presidency, and when the reporter that was interviewing him said, "Well, what party would you run for?" and he says, "Well, I'm a Republican. I would run Republican." And she said, "Well, would you consider running for, say, like a Tea Party or third party organization or something along that lines?" And he says, no, I believe in the Republican fundamentals and everything else. And at that point, he lost me. I was just kind of not that I was taken aback, because I really wasn't. But it just surprised me that, here he is, kind of touting the party line, if you will, and he's just another one of those talking heads, and it's a real shame. It's a real shame. Now, we just got some economic numbers out, Bob, and I wanted to go over that with you, as well as some stuff that I've been kind of researching myself. Unemployment, 9.8%. Do you see unemployment going up or down in the short term?
I think it'll rather hold its own, and the reason why is the QE2 is pointed towards bailing out the U.S. Treasury and agencies, and so not much is going to fall down to the public, so to speak. There is an $862 billion combination tax and pork package that should send the market and the economy sideways. I think the best that can be attained this year is 2 to 2.25% growth of GDP, and I think that if you look at last year, same program, same amount of money, $2.5 trillion, and that's what the Fed and government will spend this year, as ended September 30th. Last year, for 5 quarters, we get 3 to 3.25%, hardly worth it. And this time, you're facing the law of diminishing returns, and I think what you'll get is 2 to 2 1/4. That means sideways to slightly downward, because the remainder of the figures are bogus, and were they not to have the stimulus, we would probably be minus 1.5. Last year we were minus 0.5, but they're not going to give you those figures because they don't want you to know what's going on, and they lie about everything. Unemployment, they're talking 9.8%. That's U3. There's U1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And they add up to U6. Now, I didn't see U6 today, but the last time I looked, it was 16 and 7/8%. And if you extract the birth-death ratio, the birth of businesses, and the death of businesses, which the government has created, which is nothing but bogus numbers, the real unemployment rate is 22.25%. It may go to 20, 21, 22, somewhere in there, and that's the best they can hope for.
It's a doggone shame. It kind of reminds me of, when with all this unrest in the Middle East, the unrest spread to Saudi Arabia, and after that, there was an article. Zero Hedge actually came out with an article that was saying Kuwait was paying its citizens $3,500 a head and free food for a year to keep them calm.
That's
and
true.
Yeah, and what a fantastic way to keep them calm. I'm just waiting for people to get a little more of that over here.
Well,
what do you
think
about that?
You have dictatorships,
Mm-hmm.
and the United States never saw a dictatorship they didn't like, or at least the people who control the United States. And so you look back over the last century and into this century, and you see what's been going on in Latin America, Asia, the Middle East, and, of course, their suppressed client states, which is Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They do what they want to do. And they finance dictators because they'll do what they tell them to do, and then they walk away like this meatball that used to run Tunisia. He and his wife took 1.5 tons of gold. And so the new government, or the semblance thereof, has said, we have put out a international arrest warrant on this person. And they should do the same thing with Mubarak. Mubarak is a criminal. There's no question. People in Egypt live on $2 a day. How would you like to do that?
I wouldn't.
So that's what we're facing here. The enemy is the United States government and the people who control them.
Right.
Wall Street, banking, who own the Federal Reserve, and the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the transnational corporations. They are the ones who are running things. They own the United States of America.
So what do you think? What do you think is going to happen in the next 12 months? As far as we see a lot more political activism out there. We see at least I'm seeing more of an awakening of people. Do you see any civil unrest coming to the United States in the next 12 months?
Possibly. Not probably, because the economy is not going to get bad enough so that they'll do that sort of thing. What I think is we're going to start to see, whenever inflation gets really bad, which we'll see be 14% by the end of the year. It's 6.75% right now. The government says 1.5%. At the end of the year, the government will say 5.5%.
Mm-hmm.
That's as far as they'll go.
Right.
I know what they're going to do because I've watched them before, and that's not enough to get. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I got you.
Yeah, I'm getting scrambling, and so. I don't think it's going to be enough to cause disruption. I think perhaps later this year, but particularly next year, unless they do a QE3, there may be demonstrations. Mm-hmm. If people are smart, they'll demonstrate. They won't get wild or